there, and welcome to our first Hockey Inside Out show of 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Stu Cowan of the Gazette, and I'm joined this week by former Canadiens defenseman and assistant coach Rick Green, along with my Gazette colleague Brendan Kelly, who writes the weekly What the Puck column and is filling in for Knuckles Nyland. Rick, the Canadiens head into Wednesday night's game against the Calgary Flames at the Bell Center with a 23-13-6 record and 3 points out of first place in the Atlantic Division. What's impressed you most about this team through the first half of the season, and are they contenders or pretenders at this point?
Well, I think you really have to look at their performance on the road. I mean, if you look at a number of the games that they were behind and found a way to get back into it and win, tells you a lot about the character of the group. And they seem to be really, really together in so many ways. They're in sync. They have a good group. They're happy. And they're playing with some desperation, and they're getting the results. And, you know, there's only two other teams in the league that have a better road record than the Canadiens. And, they're right in the top grouping. And that says a lot about your team. And it's nice to see that they're getting some consistency. They're also getting some excellent timely saves that they weren't getting before when there are breakdowns that allows them to stay in the game. And, you know, they're firing on all cylinders right now. So there's a lot of good things happening. And moving forward here, if they continue to play this way, I have a little concern on occasion on. I've been repetitive on this on their defensive zone coverage breakdowns, but they're finding a way to score goals or getting balanced scoring from a lot of players that the expectations were not there at this point of the season. So there's a lot of good things that are going on right now, and I think that the opposition has got to be aware that they're a good hockey club and they never die, and I think their record speaks for themselves.
Well, they score a lot of goals, top 5 in the NHL in offense. They never give up. We see all the comeback victories, despite some shaky goaltending and the injuries, battling for first place in the Atlantic Division and the top 10 in the overall NHL standings. Brendan, what's impressed you the most?
Well, I think that, they're ahead of schedule. I don't think any of us would have thought that, come halfway through the season that they'd be right up near the top of their division, right up near the top of their conference. I think, overall the whole team has been playing better, and it really is, as you mentioned. I mean, in spite of some real problems in the goaltending situation, and they've managed to overcome that. Look, they've got a second line in the kid line. It's, since Slavkovsky's been added to that line, that line has just been terrific. Lane Hudson's having an unbelievable season. So there's, a lot more consistent than you would have thought.
Yeah, I think it's just the culture that they've built here, Rick. They seem to play for each other. They don't give up. You saw how happy they were to win for Sam Montembeault. Last couple of starts he had, trying to get him back on track. You've been in the locker room as a player and as assistant coach. Just how important is that culture for especially a young team like this?
Well, I've always said you try and put as many winners in the room as you can. The rest are going to follow. And I think they've done a great job in identifying the type of character they want to have and, what they want to build as a group. And that's contagious. When you have those kind of individuals at each and every shift they're coming out and they're performing the way they're performing, everybody has to grab a hold and start towing the same way. And right now there's a lot of guys doing a lot of things really well. And you have to follow suit, or you stick out as one that's not part of the program. And they're a happy group, they're a caring group, and it's a tight-knit group that goes a long way. And I remember the guys that we played with, we were like family. You do anything you can for your family members, and right now it seems they have that type of feel, and the performance is second to none with them as a group, because they are playing collectively the best they can play at this point of the season.
Well, they're a fun team to watch, and as you mentioned earlier, Brendan, they're ahead of schedule in the rebuild. Kent Hughes mentioned that at his midseason news conference on Tuesday. That's the first time I remember a management person saying, yes, we are ahead of schedule. He also said things get tougher now, right? Because up until now, everything's been just about the future. They never really had to worry about the present. now they're balancing the future and the present. What was your main takeaway from Kent Hughes meeting with the media on Tuesday?
Well, I think that was precisely that, Stu, was him saying and admitting, and let's just underline the transparency. I mean, they're not telling us everything, but he's telling us a lot more than previous regimes, notably the Bergevin regime. So he says, yeah, we're ahead of schedule. And it does make it more difficult because, look, the easy part of the rebuild in the last couple of years was they didn't have to win. I mean, they really didn't. I mean, it was nice to get into the playoffs last year, but they didn't have to get into the playoffs. I've been saying all year, they really do need to do everything they can to get into the playoffs this year because you don't want to go backwards. Now they're at that stage of, I don't even know if you still call it the rebuild. And if you do, it's really the last stage of the rebuild. So winning is suddenly important. All those times the last couple of years, Martin St. Louis would come out and say, yeah, we lost 5-1, but I like this. And no, now you need to win the games. And that becomes harder. And, the other thing that Kent Hughes mentioned, one of the first kind of short-term moves he's made is to pick up Philip Danault. So he's got to think about that and coming up to the trade deadline. So what are they going to do? Think back to last year. The big question at the trade deadline was, do we get rid of these players, the Armias and the Dvoraks, et cetera, or do we hang on to them? This year, the question is going to be, do we just stay pat or do we actually go and get some help? I mean, we know we're not contending. The team is not contending. He knows they're not contending for the cup this year, but do they want to go a couple of rounds? Sure they do. And so they'll have to think to see where they are at the trade deadline and do they actually pick up one or two pieces? So this is a whole new world for the coach and it's a whole new world for management.
Well, that decision last season at the trade deadline to keep guys paid huge dividends with them getting into the playoffs and that experience that those young guys gained. You can't buy that experience in the playoffs. And you said now, I think this year's trade deadline is the last step of sort of the rebuild, right? This is, and I think the two big questions he has going into this trade deadline, Rick, are what does he do with the goaltending situation with Samuel Montembeault? And can he find another top six forward to play with Suzuki and Caulfield? But with Montembeault, Rick, he's played well the last couple of games. Do you have confidence that he's found his game and should he be reinstated now as the number one goalie?
Well, I think he's deserving of it. I mean, I felt really bad for him that things were playing out the way they were. He was at the top of his game and then everything seemed to fall apart. And then when you get demoted like that, that really hurts. And then you got that pressure of, okay, have I completely lost it? Am I able to perform? Am I able to find a way to get my game back? And there were a lot of eyes and there was a lot of knives that were going to be thrown out in the event that he didn't get the job done in his first game back. And I give him full credit for the character that he showed and obviously the ability to make the saves when he made the save. And let me just back up just one more second here regarding the group. When they started losing their players, their key players through injury, we thought, oh no, here we go again. This guy's out for not 2 weeks, he's out for 2 months. And it could have been used as a crutch for them to really struggle. It didn't faze them as a group. I think it motivated them more, it brought them closer together, and they seemed more committed to pay the price to make the difference each and every night. And that says a lot about the group. And, again, I give them full marks and credit for responding the way they have responded with the key guys that are out of the lineup, which when you fast forward here, when these guys do come back in the critical time of the second part of the season, nothing but a bonus. And, it's a testament of the depth and group that they have at their disposal right now and are able to weather the storm and are right in the mix.
I think that starts with Marty St. Louis, though, because, he was asked a little while ago by Arpon Basu about the team being young and if that was an excuse. And he said, no, it's not. And he sort of was upset about it. He says nobody was talking about us being too young when we started the season 10-3 or whatever it was. So why are we talking about that now? And same with the injuries. He was asked, are the injuries, how much of an impact does that have? And he said none. I think that starts from the top. I know, Brendan, you're not a big fan of Sam Montembeault. You've written about that. Why do you basically seem to have given up on him? Why is that?
I haven't given up on him, Sue, but I'm just not ready. I wrote my column earlier this week to say I still don't believe in Monty in the sense that there's not enough proof that he's really back, because he played 2 pretty good games. But let's be honest, in both games, there were goals that were questionable. And really, that wraparound goal from Burke in the Dallas game was not a good goal on Monty's part. But even then, 2 good games, and he made some great saves. I mean, that's kind of the Montembeault thing, and it kind of drives me crazy, is he makes amazing saves. Look, he kept them in the game in Dallas, but he let in a crappy goal. And he often does that. And if you look at this season, he's got 3 good games. Those 2 games in the past week and the game against Vegas, and that's it. So you got to wait longer. My sense is, if you just objectively forget who's the veteran, who's this, who's that, you got 3 goalies. The best goalie right now, in my view, is Jacob Fowler. And I think the idea of sending him back to Laval makes no sense. What I would do is have Fowler and Monty play. Likely have Fowler as the number 1 and see what happens. And if Montembeault is really back, maybe he gets that number 1 spot. But to me, my point is just that 2 games is not enough to say, hey, okay, he's the number 1 goalie. I mean, I get they don't want to put him on waivers because they don't want to go with 2 rookie goalies. I'm just not ready to say he's the number 1 guy.
Well, Ken Hughes mentioned at his news conference on Tuesday that, obviously not an ideal situation with 3 goalies, but there's 5 games coming up over the next 7 days, so it's not a case of they won't get enough work. They're not going to keep this for a long time. I think in a perfect world, Rick, Monty regains his form, becomes number 1. Keep Dobish as the backup for now. Send Fowler back down to Laval, where he's going to play a ton. And then at the trade deadline, you sort of decide, right? I mean, I think another thing is they don't want to lose Monty for nothing on waivers. They want to increase his value if they are comfortable going forward. I think Fowler's shown enough that he is the goalie of the future moving forward. I don't think the Canadiens want to put all that pressure on him right now to be the number 1 guy, although Kent Hughes mentioned on Tuesday, he says he's been pressed as much with his mental maturity as he has with his play. So if they are sending somebody back to Laval, one of the goalies, Rick, who do you think it should be?
Well, again, it's a tough call, and it's a tougher call for them to handle 3 goalies in their system, on the team as far as getting the proper rotation. But as Ken Hughes said, it goes to the one that's deserving. They're going to give the opportunity for, I think, each one of these guys to carry the ball. And then if they drop it, somebody else will step in there. And that's maybe not a bad situation, but I think long-term, it's not a healthy scenario. And I think they're probably...
We saw that 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think that they're probably going to seriously consider, as the games play out, who do we want to keep in the mix, and who, in the best interest of the development and the team, goes down to the minors. They have that luxury that they can send a couple guys down without losing them, and, time will tell.
Yeah, I think the next week is going to determine it, as Ken Hughes said, and you mentioned, Brendan, he's been as honest as he can be with the media and the public since taking over this job. He obviously can't put all his cards on the table, but I think whoever plays, I think each of the 3 goalies are going to get a chance to play over the next week, and it could be Montembeault number 1 with Dobish the backup. It could be Fowler number 1 with Montembeault the backup. I mean, either Fowler or Dobish are the ones that are going to go down, just because the waivers always come into the play with stuff like this, and you don't want to lose an asset for nothing with Sam Montembeault. But apart from goaltending, Brendan, what's your biggest concern going into the second half of the season?
Well, you know what? I think the record at home is a huge cause for concern. I mean, they've got one of the best records on the road. They're almost right up there with the Colorado Avalanche in terms of their road record, and they got a pretty poor record at the Bell Center. And it's everyone from the fans to the pundits, to I'm sure management, scratching their heads, and even the players saying, why can't they play better in front of their own fans? And I don't have the answer to that, but that's not a good situation. So they have to improve that home record, because you know what? They're a couple of points out of first place in the division. As we mentioned at the top of the show, they're doing better than we thought they'd be doing. But look at the standings in the East, man. I mean, it couldn't be any tighter. I mean, Toronto's way down at the bottom. We're super happy to see that. But at the same time, they could go on a 3 or 4 game winning streak and be right up there with the Habs. So my view is that come the end of the season, it's not going to be that unlike last season, where Montreal is going to be scrambling, probably really close to, everyone will be really close to get that playoff position. And that's when the home record comes into it. And I, it's just a weird thing, right? Like, why can't they play better in front of their own fans?
I think it's because, visiting teams come to the Bell Center once or twice a year. And every player in the NHL says it's their favorite place to play or the best arena to play. And I think, Rick, maybe the opposition feeds off the crowd at the Bell Center as much, if not more, than the Canadiens. Could that maybe explain it?
Well, to show you how times changed, when I was on the visiting team coming into Montreal, it was like going, yes, I got lots of activity, away from the rink, and we enjoyed it to the max, to the point where maybe we weren't at our best come game time.
The Crescent Street the night before, maybe, Rick?
I won't generalize, but, some were worse off than others. But, yeah, for whatever reason, the opposition, well, with good reason, they're motivated and driven, and they love the opportunity to come in and put the fans back in their seats and keep them quiet. But that area, like Brendan says, is going to have to improve down the stretch here, because it is so tight. They can't afford to lose games that they should win, and be sorry near the end of the season going, well, that's the one that we let get away that's going to hurt us. So how do you identify it? It's a tough call, but they're quite aware of it. And I think that, as they approach the second half, they're going to have to try and find a way to improve in that department.
Well, Rick, there was good news Tuesday at practice. Caden Goalie took part in practice. He hasn't played since mid-October with the adductor injury. Full contact sweater. I don't think he's going to play Wednesday against Calgary. I can't see one practice and throwing him in, but he's going to come back soon. You're the former defenseman, the former defense coach with the Canadiens. Who sits out when Caden Goalie gets back in?
Well, I think it's going to come down to Struble as the one that's going to in and out. Jack Guy, I would love for him to stay in there. Those two names are always ones that are in and out, or the questionable ones. But I would like to see. I would like to see Jack Guy, like I said, stay in. Struble maybe take a step back. And it's good news that Goalie will come back. He's going to be. It's going to take a little time for him to get his A game back, but promising, and a very much a positive to see guys starting to return to the lineup this time of year.
And then Angstrom factors in also, Brendan. Do they send him back to Laval when Goalie? What do you do on defense if when Goalie comes back?
I got to agree with Rick. I think Struble's the odd man out. I think he's been really a bit of a disappointment this year. He adds a little bit of toughness, but he's just not been that great. From day one, I've been a big Jack Eye defender, and I think the coach, had some issues with him. And even, I was reading the La Presse roundup of the season so far, and they were giving Jack Eye bad marks. Yes, he's an imperfect defenseman, but he brings something to the game that no one else on the Habs bring. And we all know the team needs more toughness, not less. So I think you got to try to improve Jack Eye as a player. So, yeah, I think Struble's the one that gets out, and I think Goulet coming back is a huge plus. Look, we're talking about how the team is ahead of schedule. It's been really a good first half season. But you know what? We watch the games defensively on many a night. You're looking at these guys and they make mistakes in their own zone. Goulet is probably the best in terms of defensive defense, and he also brings a toughness that's missing, say, from a Dobson and a Hudson game. So I think this could be a huge plus for the team to get him back in the lineup.
Rick, the other thing is just going to Ken Hughes' news conference. He talked to Terry. He talked about maybe having to get a top six forward. He didn't say a second line center, right? And the top six forward is obviously somebody to play with Suzuki and Caulfield. If Kirby Dach comes back, I think he's the guy they're going to put in that position. If it doesn't work out with him, they might need to look outside. But Oliver Kapanen, what a pleasant, I don't know if it's a surprise, but I don't think anybody really expected him to be as effective as he has been in that second line center role. Kent Hughes said yesterday he has confidence that moving forward, Oliver Kapanen can be a second line center in the NHL. Do you think they might have found their second line center without having to make a move?
In my books, no question. I give him full marks for how he's taking advantage of the opportunity and he's delivering. And he's a kid that right from the get-go has impressed me with his work ethic, his desire to compete, his willingness to go to the front of the net. And he's a smart player. And, you put him on that line with those other two, and they make magic out there. You talk about chemistry, they just read and feed off of each other to the point where they're really dangerous when they get on the ice because they just are so creative, they're so quick, and they're so competitive. And what a nice situation to have when you have a guy like that the expectation wasn't there that he was going to be as effective in that position. Full marks, he grabbed the opportunity, and he's shown he's capable of handling it, and nothing but great things moving forward with a guy like that.
I mean, he's the oldest guy in that line at 22 years old, which is remarkable. And right from the start of training camp, or early in training camp, aren't they saying we talked about his computer, his hockey IQ, and how high it is, and the fact that he's so defensively responsible, it allows Ivan Demidov and Slafkovsky to take some risks offensively because he's there to back them up. I don't know, Brendan, is he the second line center moving forward?
He absolutely is. And I mean, Kent Hughes said it. He is. And, we'll see what happens if Michael Hage is with the team next year. But I mean, there's no question. I mean, he's responsible defensively, as you mentioned, Stu. But also, it's just, look, no one called this that he would be leading rookie goal scoring. He's tied for the top spot with 13 goals. That is totally amazing. And he has such, really that line, I mean, the kid line, whatever you want to call it, it's been a thing of beauty, and it really, he perfectly complements Demidov and Slafkovsky because they drive the play, right? Demidov's passing, I mean, oh my God, it's off the charts. And Slav is really, in a way that he never did with Caulfield and Suzuki, is driving the plays, bringing the puck up. And you know what? How many times have you seen Kapanen get that goal where it's like, he didn't do anything, but he's in exactly the right position. There was one the other night when Demi gets it to him and he's to the left of the net, and this net's empty, but he knows to be there. He really is hockey IQ on this guy, and this is his rookie season. And as I say, he's in the top 5 in terms of points in rookies. This is really, it's probably the biggest surprise of the season, honestly, because Hudson's been great, but he was great last year. Slav's been really good, but, most of us believed he was going to come into it. Who was saying that Kapanen would be as strong as this? I mean, the best proof of this is that all summer, all of us were spending the whole summer saying, hey, how do we get that second line center? And now we're saying, hey, how do we get a winger for Suzuki and Caulfield?
It's interesting you mentioned the goal. He scored a few goals into an empty net, almost right, being set up. But, Ken Hughes spoke yesterday about how the most impressive thing is how well he plays without the puck, both offensively and defensively, able of finding these holes. Michael Hage, a lot of people say he's a second-line center coming up, and he might be. But you got to remember, when Kapanen started last season with Montreal, he played like 14 games. He really didn't do anything. And they sent him back to Europe. And speaking with him earlier this season, he said, in hindsight, that was the best thing that could have happened to him because he got a taste of the NHL. He went back there. He played tons of minutes in all the different situations, came back here with more confidence, and it's showing. So, I mean, a lot of things to look forward to in the second half of the season. Oliver Kapanen, one of them, the trade deadline. A lot of good things happening with the Canadiens right now. Anyway, that's it for this week's Hockey Inside Out show. I hope you all enjoyed it. We'll have 3 bonus episodes coming up over the next few days, so look for those. And Hockey Inside Out is also available now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find us there. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel.